Thank you folks for joining today. Why don't we start with some introductions? Amanda, if you want to start.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Carlton and I lead our outcomes products at DV. So both our Sybids optimization suite and our Rockabox attribution suite.
Tony Katzer, CEO of the IAB Tech Lab. We are the global technical standard setting organization. Oh, it's not on? Oh, I thought it was on, sorry. You all heard me. Tony Katzer, CEO of the IAB Tech Lab. Yeah, my mother said I have a big mouth. CEO of the IAB Tech Lab. We are the global technical standards setting organization for the digital media ecosystem, no matter who tells you otherwise.
I don't think he's here. Everyone, I'm Gareth. I'm the CEO of a company called Gamera. I also run a podcast called Ad Tech Ad Talk with Adam Heimlich. I have a blog called Gareth Hates Ad Tech, and prior to this, I was the chair of Preview.js for a few years.
Hi, I'm Jean Fitzpatrick. I oversee our commercial strategy at Omnicom and our platform partnerships.
Great, thank you guys. Thanks as well for being available this morning to participate in the panel. Tony, why don't we start with you? You're flying all over the world right now, taking the Agentic roadmap out, talking to different companies, different regulator groups, et cetera. You know, there's a lot of conversation around these systems and decisioning in real time. As I alluded to in the slide, Tech Lab has a whole lot of follow-up things coming on the Agentic roadmap. Where does ARTF fit within this landscape? And what was the problem that you see that it was specifically designed to solve?
Well, I think ARTF is one of the foundational components of our Agentic Ad Management Protocol framework that Ray, you presented earlier, that we refer to as AMP. The ability for today's AI, and this is based on conversations we've had with engineers from OpenAI, Anthropic, even some of the folks over at Gemini. Today's AI cannot come to decisions, or it cannot it can't perform at a sub 1 second pace like the programmatic ecosystem. When Ray had the slide up there, I mean, if every transaction typically takes place somewhere between 300 to 500 milliseconds is about the average, and just the AI's agents, no LLM can reason that quickly, partially due to the transformer architectures are not as advanced as they would be. Limitations of you're running into just limitations of physics, even at the GPU level, in terms of its ability to walk these kind of decisions. So that's where OpenRTB still remains very much foundational to the ecosystem. But having agents interface with a real-time ecosystem built on OpenRTB, that becomes really interesting. And the conversation that I had with Adam Heimlich at Chalice in December of 2024, Lou Pascalis arranged a dinner between Adam and I, and Adam was like, hey, what if we could actually have agents or AI be able to influence the bid stream in real time? And I was like, pshaw, it never happened. But then as dinner progressed, he started to lay out kind of his thinking in terms of how it could be done. And he mentioned, he's like, yeah, we're working with Index on this. We think there's an opportunity to standardize around it. And here we are where Ray's slide, you know, I think the challenge was, how do we get these very powerful LLMs to be able to influence media and buying and selling in real time? And ARTF solves for that. It solves for the ability for agents to enrich or modify the bid stream, both on the request and even the response if necessary. So that's a core thing that ARTF solves for, is agentic introduction into the programmatic ecosystem.
Yeah, it's been one heck of a ride, hasn't it? Over the last
like people think we just like kind of, you know, whip this up in response to AdCP. Nothing had been further from the truth. We'd been working on it at that point for almost 18 months, and it was ready to ship. So we shipped it.
Fantastic. Jean, you and your colleagues are right at the nexus between client strategy and scaled execution. You know, from an agency and buyer perspective, what do you see as the biggest opportunity in enabling real-time enrichment on the supply side?
Sure. So I think it's funny, I've got colleagues in the room who I've worked on a couple of projects with to enrich the bids more on the supply side. And what we've seen in terms of I'll call it the traditional programmatic ecosystem, is we've already seen in that space, when you can get more of that decisioning and more of that data closer to the supply, we see better reach, right? We're able to expand those audiences, get to more of the people that we're trying to reach. And then we also see real ROI and some kind of complicated metrics. So if you think of like foot traffic for a retail media client, or even like script lift or cost per qualified patient. So some of these really complicated metrics where you're getting data like well after a campaign, what we're seeing is when we're trying to do some of that targeting closer to the supply side, we see better metrics, we're able to get more of those audiences. And I think what's really exciting about some of these new evolutions is that there's going to be more and more opportunity to bring more of that decisioning, more innovation to the supply side. And, knowing that we've already had such great success with the pipes as they are, to be able to have more time for enrichment and understanding that impression level value is going to end up being a really groundbreaking for marketers that are able to take advantage of it.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Gareth, new company, new protocol, new business model, respect for really leaning in as one of our first ARTF partners here at Index. Thank you for that. What motivated you and the company to take this leap? And what does this approach enable you to bring to market? And what does it unlock for you and your customers that really wasn't possible before?
Oh my goodness. All right, I'll take the opportunity here to wax a little poetic. So I've been doing startups in ad tech for a very long time. Like, this is my third company. It's all I've ever done. And for a long time in ad tech, touching the hot path, as you like to say, and I'm saying it because it's fun, is something that was verboten. Like, that was a very, very, very difficult integration to get with anyone, with an exchange, with a DSP, with like any of these people. And that's because of the structure of the old systems. The way the old systems were built is to add a vendor who's going to modify the hot path is adding something very scary, it's adding something very high frequency, and it's adding something very intense. And that meant that if you really wanted to innovate and you wanted to enrich bid requests, you wanted to implement unique new taxonomies, right? So like my company now ingests something client side at the impression level, which sounds trivial in ad tech, but it actually turns out it's not. Like, most companies cannot ingest things at the ad unit level. It was impossible. So my life up until now, getting these sorts of integrations was really, really hard. And that meant that for a lot of ad tech companies, a big part of their moat was actually the existence of the integration itself, not what their technology did. And for an ecosystem, that's kind of unhealthy, right? That is an innovation stifling ecosystem. So with ARTF, when we were talking to you guys, it was a very seamless way to build to a public standard to achieve something really, really flexible that to this day, no one else can do. Well, one or two companies can, but like, they're newer companies, they're smaller, it's rarer. For Index to be pushing this forward the way that you guys are is wonderful. And it's wonderful for me personally, like greedily, but it's also wonderful for the ecosystem because there are just so many things that could have been built in the past 10 years that could have been that weren't, because getting into the hot path was so hard. And now I anticipate things are going to flourish, and it's wonderful.
Yeah. When we talk about having worked on this for a while, it wasn't just to come up with the APIs and what data we were handing back and forth. A lot of the work was to figure out how to safely get agents injected into the hot path. Not just safe for the hot path, because you don't want an agent bringing down the entire exchange with however many hundreds of billions of transactions which is going through it, but also safe for the agents, because people don't want their data leaking, they don't want their algorithms leaking, they don't want their competitors to see it, they may not even want to see the exchange that you're hosting in to be able to see these things. And so a lot of the protocol, and the reason it's a framework, is how to have this interaction in a way which is safe and contained. And so it's been awesome to actually see that work in practice and to see the confidence people have had to actually package and deploy very, very proprietary algorithms and data and put it where it's going to have the maximum impact and maximum reach. So Amanda, your team's been really leaning into containerization and sell-side decisioning. What's driving that shift, and how does access to real-time impression level signals really change what's possible for campaign outcomes?
Yeah, so we've been adding our solutions through the Index container on the SSP side. really what we've seen is once the request gets to the DSP, we lose signal fidelity. So integrating on the SSP side, we have access now to the unfiltered bid requests, and we're able to make smarter decisions on richer data sooner in this life cycle and reduce media waste for our clients, right? And this is really a natural evolution for DV. We've spent years building robust data sets around verification data, so viewability, fraud, contextual, brand safety, attention. And then on Scibids, we've spent years building ML models to optimize towards advertisers' outcomes across every major DSP. So this is a natural next step for us of combining these solutions, putting it on the SSP side to make these decisions much earlier on in the life cycle of a bid. And then on your question about signals and kind of what's that doing for us, I really think it's three things. One would be quality curation at scale. So today, through the index container, we can pre-vet every bid request against DV's verification signals. So is this bid likely to be viewable? Is it brand safe? What's the probability of attention? And we can really curate a quality path for our clients. I would say number two is bringing optimization earlier in to the buying funnel. So through index with the container, Scibids scores every impression based on campaigns' performance data of what's driving the outcomes they want to achieve. So, what domains, what other inventory contexts are driving the KPIs that they want to get. And then lastly, I would say the combination of our performance measurement and optimization. So with Rockerbox, which is our attribution platform, we can combine those business metrics back into our optimization models to really drive those business events our clients want to see. So conversions, return on ad spend, incrementality, all, again, sooner in this life cycle. So it really allows us to combine our verification, optimization, and proof solutions early on the SSP side now.
Yeah, I think this idea of sort of deconstructing what we would normally do and being able to take the pieces and stick it into the bid stream wherever it makes the most sense is really, I think, one of the most transformational ideas here with Agentic. Just because something traditionally was done on the DSP side doesn't mean that that's the most efficient place for it to happen. If it can get packaged and injected upstream at the supply integration point with the pubs, there's all sorts of leverage to be had. If you're doing contextual targeting, contextual targeting with a copy of the entire internet is really painful and expensive. To be sitting on an infrastructure that's already processing the entire internet and doing the contextual targeting when the internet is first coming in and doing it once is incredibly impactful, not just from an efficiency standpoint, from a time and a reach standpoint as well. So I think it's really exciting to see what you guys are doing. But Gene, I mentioned that I've been incredibly excited to see how agencies and brands really lean into this opportunity to pull together sort of tailored stacks and tailored strategies that are really aligned, not just against what your agency is doing, but what your clients are doing. How do you see all this evolving within your agency operating models, whether it's around identity optimization or how teams activate campaigns?
Sure. So, it's complicated because there's a lot of components and pieces in there. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to find different efficiencies. And there's a lot of testing that needs to be done. But I would say, first, Acxiom has done a really good job of becoming ubiquitous and working really hard to have these supply side integrations. And we've seen a lot of success with that. Today, we have solutions in market with our clients where we are doing some of this curation stuff that I was alluding to earlier. And ultimately, I think we're going to start to understand where some of these solutions require change agent and what that type of efficiency looks like for a client and rethinking what perhaps a model could be or an operating model with them. There are definitely opportunities for us to figure out ways to be more effective when we're doing some of this supply side curation. I think the concept of the future concept of potentially UIs becoming more LLM models and those becoming the things that we're operating in is a future that is likely to come and be something that our teams are operating within. And then I think because of that, the supply side curation will be more organic to that workflow, because today we're very used to setting everything up inside of a UI and a platform, and we're used to that workflow. But not just the agents that we're talking about here today and what Index is developing, but just overall more agentic solutions coming into the workflow, I think will be a nice marriage with some of the things you guys are talking about.
Excellent. Thank you. And then a final question that we'll put across the whole panel. I think there's been a lot of industry conversation around agents and workflows for obvious reasons. There's a lot of efficiency to be gained on the human side of what we do. But we're taking a big step forward with ARTF to enable this multitude of agents to be able to come together at the point of an individual transaction and direct integrate into the hot path. So, but looking ahead, what needs to happen, whether it's standards, technology, adoption, to fully realize the promise of this brave new world of agent-enabled real-time decisioning. And so, Amanda, maybe we'll start with you and then we'll go down the line.
Yeah, so I think, having a standardization here is awesome. Even personally on product, I'm dealing with, resourcing and timelines, and having a standardized framework where you can kind of build once and integrate multiple places. For my personal work life, it's amazing because, we can do it once and then deploy. So I think that's great. I think getting people sped up on what this is, right? I think AI is everywhere right now, and kind of cutting through the noise of hey, this is how transformative this can be is key. I think too, there's a lot of infrastructure to support on the SSP side. Again, great for providers like DV, where we can deploy to your infrastructure, very cost savings and efficient for us. But making sure the SSPs can support the heavier models that we might push to our containers in the future. So I think that those would be the key things for me. And then maybe lastly, I think the data feedback loops of making sure kind of clean paths of data between the DSP side, the SSP side, and third-party measurement providers, much like DV, I think are three key pieces of this.
Excellent, thank you. Tony, how about from your side? You're living this adoption pain every day.
I think as an industry, the word I would use is purpose. I think we should proceed with purpose. I'd love to see more use cases and purpose behind those use cases. I'd love to see more testing and purpose behind that testing. This does feel very much like a gold rush or a bubble, the entire kind of agentic evolution of our ecosystem or even society. But I think we need to do a little bit of looking before we leap. One area of caution on agentic workflows in general, this doesn't necessarily pertain to ARTF, is that a lot of these agentic workflows are built predominantly on Anthropic or Claude, a bit are on OpenAI. I don't know anyone who's building on Gemini, but they're just workflow. If you think of where the IP lives, it lives in Anthropic, it lives in OpenAI. We've never rented the intellectual property for this industry, and that's the path we're going down. So that's what I mean by purpose. I think we need to really think about how we proceed over the next 3 to 5 years when it comes to agentic AI in our industry, and do we want to control our future or not?
Thank you. Gareth, how about for you?
Yeah, so I think as a vendor of some kind, the net result of this for me is I get more integrations, so I get easier ways to sell things to people. I think that zooming back from my world, which is relatively small, and thinking more about Gene's world, really what this enables is, and what agents in general I think enable, and looking at the buyer framework and the orchestration frameworks and AdCP and all those things, is in the future, testing lots and lots of vendors is going to be much more seamless. Oh, yeah. And I think if people start thinking about this now, where it's like, okay, we are now going to have a lovely automated way to test up a jillion vendors and find the best one in this moment for this thing. People should walk around with that as their North Star in their head of this is the future that's bearing down upon us. Because we vendors are building the pipes for us to be testable in this way. And I think that is a future that actually bodes super, super well for open programmatic. Because it's no secret that we haven't exactly been, grabbing market share away from Google and Facebook. That hasn't been happening. And we actually stand to be massive beneficiaries of this new high integration environment, high testing environment, because that's not how Google and Facebook work. there aren't a bunch of vendors building things inside of Google and Facebook. That's not a thing. So yeah, I would say that's like the North Star in my head of the future that's coming is this super high frequency test and customization world where when agencies are doing stuff, they really do.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you. And then, Gene, how about for you? What can we as service providers be doing to help you and other agencies really take advantage of this promise of agent-enabled real-time decisioning?
So I think there's two things. Standardization is really important because we have clients with really incredibly complicated campaigns that can never be run in one platform or with one partner. So the more standardization there is, the easier it is for us to take use cases and manage those across many, many partners so that we can have a holistic campaign. I think the other thing is starting with client use cases. So looking to the greater ecosystem to help our clients make it make sense. So when you talk about having thousands of opportunities to test all of these new things, making sure that we have that within context of a client use case. What is the client trying to achieve? And testing the important things so that there's not this information overload, because we have to be very judicious with our time and energy and our clients' dollars. And we want to make sure that it's always leading back to some kind of ROI.
Well, let's wrap up the formal part of the program then. Thank you to our panel. Thank you so much for joining us today and the insights and everything shared.